Hello.
Hey, guys.
Hi.
Hey, morning, guys.
Good
I didn't
morning.
realize you guys all hopped in here at like same time. You guys are efficient.
Yeah, 12:02. Let's go.
So I'm also recording this meeting today. I posted our last session on YouTube. So I'll be able to post this one too, just for posterity and transparency and recording, the activities that we've been doing. Should help our submission a little bit as well. So how's everyone doing? Do you want to just take a second to check in with where you're at, how your Sunday's going? Alex, you're first on my list. You start.
Good. Sunday's going good. That's it.
Okay, who's next?
Good. Just a lazy morning with some Cristos, coffee, and banana pancakes. And yeah.
There's a
going
bow
good.
and arrow behind you.
Yeah. Hunting. Yeah. Not me, but yeah. My husband's stuff in my office.
I can go next. Oh, go. You go.
I was just gonna say, same here. It's like a lazy Sunday. Saturday night was fun, so taking it easy today. That's it.
Very similar for me. I had a wedding last night, so I had a little slow morning, and I'm snowed in. I'm in North Carolina still. We got a huge winter storm, and so no driving or anything for me today.
How many inches did you guys get?
It's supposed to get up to like 7 inches. Right now we have like 3 or 4, but I already saw a car got stuck outside today.
That's crazy. We haven't gotten any snow yet, at least this week.
I used to have that poster behind you. The one with the stars. I actually
Oh,
think
really?
I have it somewhere, yeah.
Yeah, it's really big.
Yes.
Yeah.
What about you, Chris? How are you doing?
Good. Just already did the church thing, got that out of the way. So we're just getting ready for a lazy day watching football later. I'm building a outdoor kitchen, so we'll get back to work on that. Little things like that.
Awesome. Nice.
Very cool. Well,
Excited
thanks for
though.
being here.
I think it
I'm
would be a good
excited.
idea, Joe, is to go over what we did last week, just to remind everybody. Obviously, we went over a lot, and it was all sort of there, and then you get back to regular life,
Yeah, we have
Yeah.
a little itinerary kind of that we were just going to start with a recap.
I'm gonna drop 2 links and well, I'll start with just one. Or no, I'll give you both.
You want to just
I'm gonna
screen
give you 2
share
links
the
in the
Facebook
chat.
board?
Sure. I'm gonna drop 2
Can we do
links in the
that? Yeah.
chat. It's the Google Drive. This is where we're recording all of our notes and everything for the hackathon. And then this next one, this is the Figmas. This is the whiteboard. We're working on this today. And then let me start sharing my screen. So last time we started off with introductions, and we went over some different things, and the basic idea that me and Katie had started up with a few weeks ago, we really expanded into these different themes. So just to recap, the basic general idea for our app is some sort of like Pokemon Go style AR app where you can walk around a property and perform tasks. And those tasks can get recorded on blockchain, and those tasks are what is needed by the nature or the community, like the eco village. In this case, it's the Declavel village. And so you perform the task, you record the evidence that you perform the task, and then you can hopefully get paid for it. But there's like a gamified aspect where there's a leaderboard of the amount of points that you're getting for the task that you're doing, and maybe more valuable tasks get you more points and stuff like that. So breaking that whole app down into different pieces. You have the gamifying landscape maintenance, just in general, what the task will look like. There's animating and visualizing what's happening on the land itself. So the educational side of what the tasks are doing for the land and what that means. And then the next is the social media side, like the people involved with doing this, like what community of volunteers and what does it mean to have a profile of credentials with your tasks that you completed and being able to see other people's leaderboard scores. And then the last piece is the civic engagement. So that's like voting on the decision-making side behind running the community. It can also go towards deciding which tasks need to happen and stuff like that. So that was like the 4 themes that we broke down. And then we had a lot of new ideas, just kind of writing some stuff down about what they all mean. And so this is here, and we're just keeping this for posterity under the workshop 1 title. And then we have over to the right, there's more stuff that we can build on today. So that's kind of what happened at the last meeting. Does anyone have anything to add? That's kind of the recap from it.
Okay.
Doesn't sound like there's anything to add, but stop me if you do. And then the other thing I was going to say was we have this outline. So I added some headings in Google Drive. You can kind of like flip through here, but this is all of our different meeting notes for this hackathon so far. And this is what we had last time. And then I just expanded this. Last time we had a section for questions. And so the next thing I was going to do is recap the meeting that we had with SNI last week. I think Jolly and I were there, and maybe someone else, if I missed you, was there too. But it was a really great meeting. We got to hear from Anka, who actually lives there. She's one of the original designers that helped propose the whole eco village to the city, and they got the 10-year lease. So I guess just the top level high points of what happened. They're currently on a 10-year lease. They're in year 8 right now. So there's 2 years left, and they're going to present what they've done in this 10 years and resubmit a new application to the city. And they'd like to become a community land trust in like a permanent status land trust. And the last time that the whole big thing that they did last time was the phytoremediation, the idea of this circular economy, like taking a wasted area, a brownfield, contaminated former industrial port, and cleaning it off, turning it into something useful, recycling and recirculating that. And so that was 8 years ago, and they think next they're going to go for the idea of regenerate. So not only just recycling waste and looping off that part of the cycle, but how do we make it better? And then also included in, like, they have the big ecological piece, but included in that is the social equity in the community side of things. And so that's why they're going for the community land trust next. And I mean, basically, you guys already know a bit about the village. I don't want to repeat tons of unnecessary stuff, but I guess it's good to still hear that they have really had a lot of success building this habitat. They're recording data on the site of all of the improvements that they're doing and the ecological benefits that it's creating. So they have the phytoremediation to fix the contaminated heavy metals, and they're collecting different types of data about exactly what to do in that. And then they also have all of the habitat and stuff that they added. So I had a question for them for our specific app, our focus on some sort of app where you can come into the community and do tasks. I asked them, like, what kind of tasks are going on, who's performing them, what does that look like? And so here's the answer to that question. I think it's helpful for us. So they have a board structure, and there's actually no one that lives on the land. They have houseboats for workers. So it's like offices of designers. They have a cafe, a public park, like a semi-public walkway, that's the boardwalk. And then they have the hotel, which is just people staying temporarily. And then everyone who's there, like the office owners and stuff like that, they all have to contribute a few hours a month as a volunteer to continue to maintain and operate the place. And so there's several different things that you have to have happen, but everyone individually has their own trash and recycling. And there might be more that we can do with composting and recycling the individual offices, waste streams. And then they have basically the landscape maintenance that has to happen is gardening, pruning, cleaning the weeds off of the boardwalk. They have the harvesting of the phytoremediation plants, the specific way that they're treating heavy metals. They're absorbing it in the plants. That's what phytoremediation is. And then they have to collect the toxic plants, and they have a contaminated compost for all of those. But then also planting new plants, and that can be the different phytoremediation strategies. And then they have unmaintained areas, which is still good bird habitat. So there's like the landscape gardening piece, and then there's the data collection, and monitoring piece. So they collect soil samples, they sample the physical plants that contain heavy metals, they collect atmospheric climate data, temperature, pressure, and then they have satellite data that is probably less often, and then they have biodiversity data, which is like very manual, like recording different species and stuff like that. So that can kind of be our compass in the direction of which type of task we can propose the app to do for this village. This is being run off of volunteers, and they said they basically have sort of like this educational piece to what they do. So the people who come to volunteer want to learn how to phytoremediate. Maybe they have contaminated lands in their area, they want to work on a project similar, and they want the experience with this particular problem type. And so they get a lot of retired people, expats, young people, old people. They have school groups, lots of school-age kids in the summertime. They said it's beautiful in the summer. And then the actual office owners also are part of the volunteers as well. So there's like that educational piece so far has mostly been tied to phytoremediation. So that's me. I just talked a whole bunch, but that was kind of what I got out of the meeting we had with Anka and the other people from Dequavel. Anything else you want to add, Jolly, or any questions about any of those things? I can't hear you, Jolly. I don't know if you're muted.
I was going to say, I think you covered pretty much everything.
Cool. So me and Katie, so now let's move on to today and where we like to get today. Me and Katie talked a little bit about it. We are thinking by the end of today, we can have different tasks and possibly working groups that can work on stuff over the next week or two and come back, and like we'll all come back together and kind of share what we did. So what I see, if we have time today, we can go over the metaverse. Maybe I can just show you now while I'm sharing my screen. But we got invited.
Odyssey Metaverse yet and seen our like spot in there?
Yeah, I don't know if anyone else has gotten that email, but I'm able to add anyone to our team. So the hackathon is going to happen in the 3D metaverse. So it's this basically a game inside this. My computer says low system resources. I'll turn off my camera.
Fly around in it, and we have like a presentation space. Is that what you're opening now, Joe?
Yeah, it's loading.
Okay.
So it's like this 3D space. We have space for like a whiteboard. We have space for like an about section, a YouTube video. Can you guys hear that? There's like noise happening on my screen. I don't think I shared the audio.
I can't hear
But
it.
you're like, so I'm like looking around. I'm in the headquarters right now. This is like the SNI space. And there's some information about SNI. And then think if you go to,
And I like flew around to
That's
look
my
at the other boards because we could do that and like talk to other groups, but I didn't see anyone had been on there yet.
here's our space. We can like edit this. And anyways, it's just gonna be kind of fun. We can like play around with this and fly around together like during the actual event in February. And you can see we have like a poster space right here. Oops, sorry, I'm still not great at flying around and it's very laggy on us. And then there's like space for a video or something and these other things. So
We could,
anyways,
like,
that's it.
go into there.
crazy.
Yeah,
Very
go in
interesting.
one of these.
Yeah, we should put our logo onto the poster.
So here's the, like when people come up, they can click here. I think if I add you to our team, anyone, you guys can edit this with us. So we'll have a space for a video, meme, poster, and some text. And then there's links over to Google Drive and Miro and other stuff. So yeah, that's what it'll be fun. I think the actual conference is going to be really fun. Going to meetings and stuff in this space is going to be interesting.
So what if the judges just fly around to each platform and view the presentations? That's really cool.
Yeah,
We
so
can-
we're gonna have people helping us. They can come over, they can join our team, they can share with us. We can merge teams with some other team doing something cool, like similar to us. And then, yeah, we'll have time to host meetings in this space. Like, I think when other people join, you'll like see people's videos pop up and stuff. But yeah, that would be fun.
Cool.
This is very interesting.
It's gonna be new for all of us.
Right.
So Joe and I were thinking, we were working on the app and doing the wireframing for the app so that it could be taken by a developer, and basically the wireframing would explain, how our app is going to look. And so we were just jotting down some ideas of that to share and continue to build off of.
Yeah, so today it's just a working meeting. It's not fully structured. I think we still have like 3 weeks or so till the final deadline. So I think we're doing great. Like I think after I got out of that last meeting with Deck Lavelle, like we are so on topic and on track. And if we can just show people what we're imagining, I think we'll really have something great here. So today's not very structured. I just have like 2 different exercises we can go through as a group. And then hopefully we'll have like tasks at the end of today that we can kind of break off. And I'm thinking maybe if you guys are able to do like an hour or so of work sometime this week to help build out one piece of either the presentation or the documentation or graphics or whatever else we need. So yeah, any questions or anything on your guys' mind before we jump into one of these little exercises?
Joe, what
All
about
right.
your Refi food web? Did you want to share that?
I think if we have time, can we revisit that at the end of today?
Yeah. Okay.
It's like, so there's cool stuff going on for public land protocol in general. And we're forming lots of new partnerships with people. And I'm hoping that there will be a really amazing new DAO called the Refi DAO that pops up, and we'll start giving funding to projects like ours to continue to do good work. So that's cool. Cool stuff could be happening with that. I can share like the work I've been doing on that later. But yeah, I want to stick to the hackathon.
Can you zoom in a little bit?
Yeah, so let's so first I just wanted to start with, based off of everything that everyone knows, this is called a user journey. And I don't know if you've ever heard of this before, but in user experience design, like UX design and user interface design, you can imagine the different people and their personalities and their contexts and their education level. And when they come to your site, like what are they expecting to do? What are they trying to achieve? So I just want to spend like 5 or 10 minutes and make sure we can capture in a brainstorm, like all these different people we imagine might need to use this app. And then later these users, we can test what we're designing to see, was this user able to accomplish their task or whatever they needed to do. So I think we should just go in a round table, and in my screen, I don't know if it's the same for everyone else, but I have on mine, I'm first, Joe and Alex, Katie, Jolly, Chris. And I want to try, since we're a small group, just each of us talk once at a time in order in a circle. And so everyone has time to share their idea. And if you don't have anything, it's no pressure. You can always skip or pass, but just to make sure everyone gets heard. And so we can try it out over the next like 10 minutes or so. So this is the user journeys. So the question is, who name one user that will be coming to this app, and then name one action that they'll try to perform. And then I can, you guys can jump in here with me. You can also type while you're talking. I can be a note taker though as well while we're going. And so we're just gonna spend 10 minutes thinking of who will come to the app and what will they need to do.
How do you drag the screen again on the Figma board?
If you hold the space bar and click and drag,
Gotcha.
you can,
Okay, I'm
you can
trying to
click,
get to that
and
page
then-
where you're at.
Yeah, I can
I see
actually
it.
send you.
No, I got it. I'm good. And then zooming in is just command.
It's,
And
yeah, the scroll wheel plus command.
okay.
And zoom in and out.
All right.
So I'll start. I'll say the first one is the actor is like a land owner, and the action that they want to do is check the task was completed. So they have something they need to get done. They want to go and see, did they do the garden? Alex, you're next.
A community participant would be another actor, and their action
Actually-
is to follow the task.
Sorry, I know it's awkward, but I was gonna say we should go in order. And so you have like a time to
Yeah,
speak,
Katie.
just to make sure, to make sure everyone's voice can be heard. We can just try, I don't know if we don't like it, we don't have to do it. But Alex, you're up. I'm gonna skip you after Alex. Katie.
Okay, so an actor could be, I mean, someone interested in information on rewilding native species, community engagement. I don't know what a simple word for that would be. I guess someone new to helping the community, and an action that they can do. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, let's call them noobs.
That's a great word.
Go ahead.
And an action that they could perform is planting native species. I'll try to keep it kind of specific for the action, I guess, because a lot of people have to.
Yeah, so we can just really quick notice, sorry, I'm out of order, but I'm the note keeper and timekeeper and all that stuff. So the actors, you'll have one actor under this list, and then the actions you can have like multiple. I think if you press Control Enter, it'll just make a new sticky. So the actions will have multiple things each user can do. Okay, great. So next is Katie. Do you want to finish your thought about the community participant?
Yeah. The community participant is someone who is present, you know, on the land and looking for a way to volunteer or a task, looking for a task to complete. And a community participant can also vote on protocols.
So what?
And so they would be completing tasks and voting on protocols. And another, you know, actor could be of the community participant could be someone who is seeking education. So an action to the community participant is seeking education if we have an educational aspect there on the app.
Sorry, is that the actor or that's the action?
Action, yeah, seeking education for
Great.
land stewardship.
Probably I see you next on my list.
Yeah, that's perfect.
I think you're muted, or I can't hear you.
Sorry, I'm going through my phone, so I have to mute it so it's on my laptop and my phone to talk. I was going to mention the community manager would be another actor, and that's the person that's like the overseer who kind of monitors what actions need to be taken, like for volunteers to complete tasks and tasks that need to be done, and then once they are completed, you know, monitoring that they are completed and kind of removing them from the app.
Okay, great. I'm still typing, but you can go ahead, Chris.
So mine would be, potential actor would be like an ecotourist, someone wanting to visit physically or virtually, like we've been doing, looking up Decavel, and even the action would be to visit a virtual museum and or a YouTube channel that's set up for a specific property that they're maintaining or is being maintained.
That's great. Let's see. So, any other actors? I think.
What about
we
investors? I put that like investor slash, you know, because I mean, at the end of the day, some people will view this from a monetary standpoint. Some people might view it from a philosophical standpoint.
Yeah,
You can call them
investor,
investor activists, possibly. Yep.
I feel like
Sponsor's
we
good
can
though.
break activists up to other pieces. But I'd say investor, sponsors have money. They can contribute money to either specific land or specific task type. Like if they wanted to help birds on all of the different properties on the app or something like that. And they could fund those things. And then activists, I mean, I guess, I don't even know if you're trying to go this direction. I think an activist is more like trying to like make some political change somewhere. I think investing is one way you can make change, but
Yeah.
I don't know what the action would be.
Activists would be a goal, would be, you know, the goals of like, depending on the land, like if the goal is to rewild, or if it's to create eco village, or an activist can be anyone who is passionate about the outcome for the land. So that would come with just getting updates. That would go under being able to vote, being able to contribute to new protocols. It's like the social aspect of it too. But yeah. Cool.
They can advocate for the land.
I also noticed when
an activist.
I also wanted to say when I was watching a little bit about the presentation, the lady was pointing out like they had, for instance, been surprised at the number of birds and and animals that are showing up. I think it'd be really neat if it were a game within a game where people could identify, the known species that live there, and they could say, "Oh, just saw this type of bird," or whatever. Or even if it's new, and take a picture of it and post it, because that's the whole point, right? Rewilding. So they found a hedgehog. That's pretty cool. Living on the land now.
Maybe let's call them naturalists, and they can capture critters.
I love that
and
too.
info on species.
I love that too. I had a similar vision as Chris. I was thinking about like even like badges under your NFT or under the NFT of the village. Like this is where cardinals live here. And basically you could see what wildlife.
That's cool, Katie.
Like cardinal has been spotted here. Hogs have been spotted here, and it's under the profile of the land. Something like that, and part of the educational aspect. But yeah, it could be part of the land's profile is animals that have been spotted, and you could submit that in a way somehow.
Okay, I want to get back to being in order again, if that's possible. So Alex, do you have any new actors or actions?
Yeah, maybe. You don't have to put this one, but I was thinking about like artists or just creative individuals as an actor, and the action that they could perform is just maybe to design or be creative in a space that they help create. I don't know if it fits what we're doing or not.
I absolutely think it fits. I mean, that's the type of thing. I'm gonna move this to the side because it's funny. Because it's like that's just gonna be a different type of task that happens on the land.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any new actors or actions you want to add? Or anyone can combine?
Sponsors. How about
Katie?
how about students? I know a lot of places will host field trips and things like that. Educational opportunities. I mean, I know that sort of goes along ecotourism, but this is more along the lines of eco-education.
Definitely. I think that's great. Volunteers for educational credits could be an action for students.
I know we talked about that last time too.
Ollie, any new actors or actions?
Yeah, I don't know if this counts, but like the data collectors themselves, like who are the people that are analyzing, like maybe where are they seeing concentrations of certain species, and just how, all the data that they can get from this space, just with an experimental, like, first prototype. And if they do plan to expand, like those people would be responsible for kind of, figuring out how to make it more regenerative in the long term through that data.
I have one more. So I thought about this. You just jogged my mind, but let me close the door. Sorry. What about at the end of the day? There's got to be some. The whole point of this is to, let's say they were taking over a polluted piece of land, they're fixing it up. There's got to be some government in there local government to like biologists and things like that to measure concentrations and things like that. So there's definitely actors would be government regulators or officials to monitor the reduction in the levels of pollution or whatnot.
Yeah.
I
That's a good
will
one.
add
That's-
another one of like neighbors. I feel like people who may not even care about the land or what's going on, like still want to watch what's happening or like keep
Yeah.
up to date. And also like make sure like something bad doesn't happen. I don't know, like everyone wants their neighborhood to like be beautiful and stuff. So maybe they still have a way to vote as well, that vote on the outcomes. I feel like they have different needs. Okay, Alex, I think you're next in this. Anything new? Anyone
Nothing new.
combine?
Brian Fat.
Okay. Okay, Charlie, anything new?
I have a question. So
Uh-huh.
do you know if they plan to, like however many acres they have right now, do they want to expand that land and keep it like growing? Or is it like, oh, this is a finite amount of land and we just want to work within this space? Or do they plan to kind of expand out that area?
That's
You
a great
know.
question. I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, because one idea I was thinking of was if they really are, depending on the volumes they take in for their fire remediation efforts, like if they could expand it to the local community where, you know, you can bring, or like, or working with the local government, with the local state office, like, hey, if you want to make this into a facility that takes in material for us to create, you know, using fire remediation to break it down. I know that you could get like subsidies and money for, you know, taking that from the community, but that's why it depends on how much land, and that would be like a separate thing that they could have, a facility or something.
Just added subsidies to government regulators.
Yeah.
Chris, anything new for you?
No, I think right now I'm sort of drawing a blank.
Okay, I'm gonna add, I'm just gonna add a few more for the people who are already there. So we have the office workers and
that's true.
office owners. And then we have the cafe workers. Like, I don't know how this will come about, but I'm just gonna write it down. I know they're already there. And then we have the hotel, like visitors. And then they have the public park.
You know,
I don't know.
I just
They
thought
can
of
probably
something, Joe.
combine and stuff. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I know we've written down sponsors. You may be able to put down not necessarily sponsors, but partners. So let's say like a company like Marriott Worldwide wants to partner with this particular community to put a hotel there. Or
Yeah, like
create a brand,
business
like a boutique
development.
brand or something like that. Yeah. Developers, yes.
Businesses and opportunities.
B2B, yeah.
Okay, I think we're at like 10 plus minutes now for this exercise. So is there anything that we can combine where I'm thinking, excuse me, a community manager, community participant, landowner, those maybe in like the office owner, like some of the owners and the managers can kind of be one bucket. And then like
Yeah.
the visitors, the hotel visitors, park visitors, like and like the newbies, like maybe that can kind of ecotourists, naturalists,
Yep.
that could be another bucket.
Corporate partners, and one could go in with
And then
government, almost like they could be more like a, you know, a commercial wing, if you will.
so let's say the there's like land owners and managers. That was one big community. And then what was the other one I said? Visitors. Is there any other like major category? There's like different types of visitors, different types of owners and managers. Maybe what is this, is the scientist unique enough to be his own thing? I don't know. Naturalist, scientist, data collector. I think those are all different ones we had. And maybe we can say like outside stakeholders. So like the neighbors, the government, and the scientists, like they might not be a landowner or a visitor, but they have something that they want to say about what happens here, or how it works. So I'll do that. I'm just trying to compile this together, and then we can think more about what these people will really need from the app. So like an outside stakeholder. Okay, well, I can rearrange this later, but I wanted to do a little exercise. Are you guys all in this board with me? Yeah, it looks like everyone's here. So there's something called dot voting. You can grab this pen tool on the bottom of your screen, or the marker, press M, and then get the big dot, and then get a different color, it doesn't really matter. And what we're gonna do is on this list on the left, you can put a dot on the ones that you think are the most valuable. So I just put green dots on this. You can make them big, meaty dots. You just click and drag. It's like a normal marker. This one, maybe this one's bigger. Highlighter. That one's big if you want to use the big highlighter. But just like on your own right now in the space, take a second, and there's one that you particularly care about seeing in the final vision. Just make sure you put a dot on that one. And you can do actions too, like, and so we're going to try to identify what's like the first main one we should try to let work through. And while you're talking, I'm going to make these categories bigger, and maybe we can.
The vote is on what's most important. Is that what you said?
Most important, what you like the most, like what do you think the app needs to have? And if you like, yeah, let's just do positives right now, like what to focus on.
Like your top, like pick three, maybe like a top three.
You can do more than 3 if you want, but we just want to be able to see, like, so we're really expansive, open-ended, going wherever we want to go. And now we need to focus on what was the most important things we learned.
Okay.
I'm color coding right now. So, nice. Did everyone get through?
Yeah.
I feel like we're done looking through these. Cool. So I just kind of color coded. These were like the categories I kind of tried to come up with and tried to fit them in. It wasn't perfect, but now we have kind of an idea of different types of owners and managers, different types of visitors, and different types of stakeholders. And then, let's see. So we have 3 votes for checking tasks. And then we have like almost everyone, it looks like, voted, or some of those were my extra marks. Like 3 more people voted on this. So I think the task is huge so far, what I'm seeing. The community manager. Yeah, I think it's good. And then the government got a few scientists. Okay, I don't know. We can make this more and more useful as time goes on, but
Yeah, and we might
think
think
it's
of
good.
more actors to add. And I would say just go on there and, you know, if you think of an actor, put it on there and we'll, you know, recap this at the next meeting. Because I find
Yeah, we'll
that
be able
I walk
to.
away from stuff and I keep thinking about more. So if you think about more, just add it and we'll recap it.
It'll be good to, like, before the final presentation to see, okay, this is what we tried to do. Did we make that or design that? Okay, cool. Well, what did you guys think about talking in a round? Did you like having space to talk? Or was it restrictive?
Could you say that again? I missed that.
Yeah, I couldn't hear you.
Oh, sorry. What did you guys think about talking in a round? So like each person individually having to talk in order. So we keep using that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Should we
Okay,
look at
cool.
the wireframe now?
So now let's move over to the wireframe. And me and Katie just got together really quick to kind of compile what we had last week and start thinking about what does that mean for individual pages that we need to have on the app. So Katie, do you want to kind of help explain what we came up with?
Yeah. So with wireframing, we're just trying to envision how our app is going to look and be used by its participants. So we're thinking that when you first open the app, you start with a landing page. And the landing page, you may be able to browse lands, like possibly it's like a globe that you can spin and almost like pinpoints on a map. Like maybe you can pick a land or type in an area that you know of and see what lands are in Florida or around the world. But from there you can, so the landing page would have the map. It would have about public land protocol. You'd be able to browse lands. You could have the option to start a community. So the option to jump in and submit your land for participation. And once you chose a land, it would take you to that land's landing page, which is like a community page. So you would have you would have pictures, you would have their legal structure and just basic documentation information about what's going on with that land. Then you would also have a timeline to view. So the history of, and we're thinking of just a very simple, like scrolling through a timeline and being able to stop on, last week and check on a task that was done and open it up and see what it was, see documentation of it and pictures of pictures uploaded of what it was. Also, you can go and vote on the protocols for that community. And that's as simple as 1-line protocols that you can vote left or right on, yes or no on. And then tasks that you could pick up that need to be completed. And the tasks would be an explanation, a detailed explanation of how to do that task, whether it's like pruning or, trimming a tree or whatever it is, it has a complete outline for someone who would be able to learn how to do that. And then you also have your own user profile, which is like your about you page. It has your rewards, what you've completed. It's like your bio. It's like your social page. Shows your rewards and earnings, your credentials, what you've done, what lands you've participated with. And yeah, that's kind
Did you
of,
add like a people you're connected to type of like a social media aspect in that way?
yeah, we definitely.
Followers or something like that?
Yeah, because we want people who are participating on the same lands to be able to talk in their community pages. So maybe that is on the specific community page on the land, like almost like a Discord channel for each land has their own that you can jump into and talk to the people who are participating. I think of like
Next door is another one.
Yeah, friends, followers, connect. I think of like a Stockwitz board, where you can go and like post comments and comment on those comments. Yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so this is just an open working session now. It's not very structured. So we can all work in this together. And there's a little bit of organization here, but please feel free to jump in and edit text box and stuff. And we can get more refined with like a text version of what's supposed to happen. And then we can move into what visually what it will look like. And that'll be what we can deliver to like the developer to be able to build it for us. So let's get back in around. So Alex, do you have any thoughts, any comments, anything you want to add? Any pages that we need? Any details about any of this? Anything you don't like that we need to get rid of?
No, still trying to like put it all together, I guess. Visually in my head, what's on there so far, I think needs to be on there. We're just leaving start a community, the steps beyond that to another date, or?
So I guess the general idea for the wireframe is to identify each major component that you're going to need to have in the app. So like the major titles will be like a page, and then I'm thinking these will be like a section on the page, and they can link to even another page. So this would probably, it's good to have like start a community page that would actually let us do, and then we need to do more detail on getting like you get more and more detail on each individual thing. So I think on the main page, you would have the ability to like link to, hey, I want to start a community, but then we need a separate page that's like, okay, tell us your name, tell us your property. Like, so this is like, that's the structure that it's based on. So yeah, we need to do some more for sure.
And what about under the landing page, connect to your wallet? Because if you're going to be doing NFTs, you're going to have to wallets connected. So you're going to have some form of doing that.
Yeah, so that piece of it, let's like include it and talk about it, but I'm feeling like, because I don't know what shape it will take. It's hard for me to, I guess it's just hard to imagine what needs we'll have from like the smart contract perspective. But yeah, we definitely need to link our wallets for the dApp.
Connect your MetaMask wallet. Does it matter what wallet? Is there can we hook up to more than one wallet?
Oh yeah, there's low quality, there's MetaMask, there's tons.
It just gets into so many questions
about like,
I guess
which chain we're on and all that kind of stuff.
That's a great point.
So yeah, I think we can put a pin in anything technical like that, and just focus on the bones of what
Well,
needs
maybe
to
it's just
show up.
there as a placeholder. You know what I mean? Like it's just there for future development.
Yeah, I'm putting it on the landing page. I mean, pretty much will go on all of these stuff. I mean, it's a good question. I mean, like, I feel like it's almost separate. So this is like a web to, this is like the interface. The wireframe is like, what is the interface? How do the pages link together? How does one user click a link and get an action completed? And then the smart contracts, I feel like, is almost a whole entirely separate beast where, like, Paul from PLP was telling us, like, you could have a credential and a digital twin NFT. And I think it's like where we're at here in the wireframe, we can talk about functionality and we don't have to know how it's going to happen or what it means or the other piece of it. So anyways, I put the connect to wallet button on it.
A couple of things I was going to add is just to kind of get the word out there, like having maybe points that you get for referrals, for referring someone to the app and to download it. So even if they've never visited, they may, just be curious and download it, and then that may drive them to actually go there and get involved. So having like a referral system, and then maybe somewhere where they can have, where they can input feedback, and if they have just a suggestion or things that they want to, like, just a visitor wants to say, and it's like, where do you go to tell someone? And if there's a place on the app.
You're talking about for the community or for our app?
I guess I was thinking maybe if it could be in the app, it'd be good. Like if it's to somebody who has the app and, it's like, oh, you think of something like, oh, I wish they had this, but if you had somewhere to just submit it.
I'll do both. I think you can like give feedback to the community property itself and tell them like, hey, I think you should do this and plant a tree here. And then like our app also, like you could tell us like, hey, I wish on the app I could do this thing.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, also that makes me think under land and community page to be able to submit a protocol, submit an idea for a protocol. Maybe it's like a really simple survey form that pulls up, but that way these communities are constantly getting an input of ideas and suggestions of new protocols, like that funnel that needs to be ongoing so that we know there's constantly protocols to vote on.
Another thing I thought about is like an FAQ.
About the community?
Yeah. Well, just about, the community, but other subjects regarding the, basically.
Okay.
Every page
we
is
can
going to,
do
I
a
mean, every
general
website I go
too.
to has a FAQ, exactly. It doesn't have to be specific. Like what is eco, because I mean, like I had to research it, so same thing.
So maybe that would be under the first landing page on the account.
And maybe it's its own section.
Yeah, FAQ about decentralization, about the sovereignty of land, about all these definitely words that need to be defined. Just explaining what the whole concept is. That's a great idea.
Then another thing could be, examples, like the Cavell could be an example or another, just to give people an idea. Okay, this is what it is. That could be under the FAQ. Links to, those types of places.
Mm-hmm.
Alex, anything new for you? I haven't heard from you in a minute.
Yeah, I was just thinking about looking at kind of we're browsing by land and communities, but I wonder if there could also be an option to browse by like the actions that we just went over, or even the actors. So like a student's page or a landscape maintenance or a rewilding. And so you can, I guess, instead of having a bunch of communities and you're looking for the right fit, you find the community based on what you're interested in, I guess.
That's actually a really good point.
Mhm. Yeah, because if you're a student and you're wanting to specifically find a volunteer, option in your area, yeah.
Or you're a landscape architecture student that's looking at some kind of summer internship design community where you're going to be drawing and thinking creatively and thinking about systems and all that. You want a project or a community that's going to help you find that.
Oh, yeah, and then
Maybe
also,
like,
sorry, go ahead, Jolly.
oh, I was just gonna say like a careers page almost, where you can find internships and openings and things that they may have, so you can learn about it.
And I have another idea.
I'm wondering where that would fit in. Like if like you have the short-term visitor and like a long-term visitor, like full job, like come here and like do this job and get
Do like a
paid
job
weekly.
board.
Yeah, like a job board versus like this task. Because like job, someone can move halfway across the world to go live there and do that thing. If it's just like, oh, we need to pick the weeds, then that totally
Yeah,
different
maybe not
thing.
a career. Yeah.
I don't know where to put that though.
Maybe just like an FAQ.
Put it to the
like,
side, and then maybe
Yeah,
that
I'll
way
do it off of
you're
my
able to
phone.
figure out. Yeah.
Yeah, and then under user profile page, I think of having an option to export or like create a CVC of like your task you've completed, the hours you spent on it, the rewards, like a way to export your profile into a document, like in case you did need to submit that, for student volunteerism or for anything. To have that option to create an export would be pretty neat. Yeah, to show your profile if you need to submit it for something.
I have, well, Alex, you were about to say something. I'm not sure we heard
Yeah,
you.
under user profile page, I was thinking about having a like a photo library or a camera feature for people to document the cool stuff that they're doing on this app. And then maybe even be able to share it. You have like friends and followers, staff connections, being able to share what you're doing with your friends and followers on this app. And maybe even connect it to Instagram or Facebook or something like that.
I'm wondering, so we have like, maybe there's like a sum total timeline, and then you have like one version of that is the resume version Katie talking about, where it's focused on what you were completing and what tasks you had, and then one version's like almost like the storytelling or like photo side of things. It's like being able to share it in a social media kind of way.
What about
Like they both kind of come out of the timeline. Sorry, what?
for like the resume part, or like what about ranking? Because we kind of talked about that last time under rewards, but like are participants going to have a rank like the more you participate, the higher your ranking is on the, with the community, and maybe that allows like certain rewards, like say at the coffee shop, a coupon for a free coffee to like high, people with high participation. I don't know, the leaderboard.
like
Yeah, no, that's important. I mean, like that's like one of the things that we originally said was important about this app was to have a leaderboard, and it kind of So like what you did gets recorded into a point system. This comes back to the whole gamified thing. So if you did a task, the task shows up on your timeline. You have the video, photo evidence, or whatever that you can share on Facebook. And then you have the credential that you can do. And then there's like the points and the point system you put on the leaderboard somewhere. And there's some way to get paid for how many points you had or like whatever specific task. So I'm wondering, yeah, there's just a lot. It just gets so deep, everything you do. So the task has, like an individual task can have an individual bounty, right? And then also there could be like just the community rewards, like almost like you get a discount, you know, when you have like, when you're in the neighborhood club or whatever, you get a discount to all the businesses in the neighborhood club. So it's like you get to silver status with this many points, like then you get cheaper coffee at the cafe or whatever. But also if you do the specific thing for cardinals, then the Cardinal Society will pay you this extra money, you know? So I don't know where all those bits of information can show up, but yeah, I think the leaderboard and like what ties it to the gamification, that's kind of like the core thing.
Any other thoughts?
So I'm thinking kind of related to that, but I think we need to have some sort of like this browse by actor thing Alex was talking about. Maybe one of those can take you to like the investor or the donation page or like the sponsorship page. It's like, I want the specific type of task to happen, or like I care about Black Lives Matter and I want to make sure this type of thing happens on the site for this community that I care about. So I'm going to contribute $5 to help that happen. You
Would
know,
that be your land community page? Donate, just like a plain old like donate button.
I'm
where you can
thinking
send
it would be like if it could be its own page, because like you could be a general, you could be a global contributor to contributing to, you know, whatever bird habitat worldwide, or you could be specific to this community. So maybe the community page needs its own donate button. And then what I was thinking is like you have this ability to like capture like the true potential of DeFi, like all these hundreds of millions of users, like these outside people, different people could start caring about certain types of things. And that's what me and Paul from Tilt started getting into, is like this specific type of credential, this type of task gets paid for by this outside sponsor. So I think it's both. I think you have donate on the community side and then like a sponsorship page or something. I don't know.
So you're thinking that if you want to be a sponsor, you should be able to donate globally, or what if you're just really want your money to go to a specific community because you're connected with it and you know their needs, you just want to directly donate to that community.
I think it should be both. I think it needs to be flexible enough. Maybe on the donation page, we can talk about those specific things. So you can do donate by task or like mission.
I also think
by property or community.
I also think each community needs its own like not like URL, but like a way to type in the search. Like each community needs its own recognizable tag or name, where when you're searching you can type in that community's identity just to immediately pull it up and find it.
You
So
repeat
maybe
that one more time. So on the community page.
Yeah, I think each community should be able to be searched by either its name or another direct way of finding it. Like if it has some unique identification, number or code or username for the community. Or maybe it's just simply its name, but a way to quick search a community and find it.
I just added that to the browse
Right.
login
Yeah.
by direct
Yeah.
link.
Yeah.
And
a
they can have like a shareable link, like they can put this
Yeah.
link on their website and it takes it to this page in their app
Yeah,
where they're
exactly.
keeping track of all this.
Yeah. Yeah. Like they each need, like they need their own URL direct links. Yeah. In a way. Yeah. A shareable link would be really cool so that they can add that to their websites or, join us in the app. And that goes under referrals as well. So I guess, what Jolly was saying as a referral, the referral would be for the overall downloading of the app. Is that what you meant by referrals, is to be able to refer someone to download the app?
That's correct.
And then, could you send a referral code that's specific to a community? So you're downloading the app and then it immediately takes you to the community, just like a Discord channel. Like you're downloading the Discord app, but then you're immediately jumping into the chat channel.
I really like that. So you can do an individual user link or an individual community page link, where that referral can be tracked back to that specific link. And we can try to give a reward to those, either the individuals or the communities that are bringing in the most users. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is great. So I'm having one question in my mind, and it kind of came up in the SNI, one of the SNI talks that we had, but it's like the theme of the hackathon is that nature can own itself, and that nature has a voice, that the value that nature creates is owned and retained by nature itself. And I think our app is so spot on target to being able to provide something to that. So like with the tree owns itself, our app can help to coordinate everything that the tree needs to do that the tree can't do for itself. And that can include like watering or pruning or taking care of it, or just making sure it doesn't get run over by a car, or cut down or used for some wrong purpose. But the question that I have is, it comes back to the decision making. So I think we can work more now on like the voting side of things. It's like, how do you decide? Say, for example, we have a community that's just a preservation land for nature. Like, how do you make decisions on which types of tasks should happen for the sake of nature? And I think the harder we can hit that question, the better we can deliver to the hackathon theme. And I think we have a very strong case for the Dequavel Village in specific. We can do tasks specific to them, data collection, and everything that they're working on. I think we have something amazing. But I think if we can hit this question of like, who decides what nature needs, then our app can perform those things. But how do we decide what nature needs? You guys have any ideas on that? I think you're muted, Chris.
Sorry about that. So what about, I know we discussed in the last meeting about a community manager. The people that are managing that community know best what, that particular area needs. So it's almost like a mentor, if you will, for the land. Because I mean, it's going to be really hard for us to know. Yeah, and it's going to be hard for each community to be different. So that's where I think that community manager really is important.
Yeah, that's a great point. actual communities. And, that's what, what's really crazy is this can expand so much even bigger to like how cities, run their public parks. There's so many decisions that cities make about, different streets and funding and all this different stuff. And this style of an app, this sort of decentralized thing, it's so important. We're so connected to the people on the ground doing the thing. Those people have extra weight towards voting on decisions. I think you end up with a better result.
Joe, I had just one quick thing to add about the land community page. I think of like with the Day Seville, it's what's called a brown field. And so it's toxic ground. There's scientists who come in and out. There's data collection. So I think also on land community page is something that you could submit data, and it can also hold documents and the science and data collection that's gone on with the water and the soil and the testing. It would be cool to make that public on the app where you can go in and submit new data collected on the land. And then that's transparent and you can view that. And that's also a part of like the learning aspect of it. But these lands have so much, especially the Day Seville, constant testing and scientific research. So I also think of that having the ability, on its individual community page to display that information as well as submit new documentation. Yeah, data collection, publication, articles about it as well. Press releases, current events, calendar, things upcoming on their community calendar.
Ooh, the calendar's a good idea. Maybe that's kind of the timeline that goes back in the past, but then also in the calendar in the future.
Yeah, sorry to backtrack. I was just had that going through my head.
No, it's good. We want to make sure we get everything. And we might not have a great answer for how nature owns itself. Just think when we do present what we're talking about, that if we hit that theme hard, then we'll have a better chance when this is.
Yeah, about nature owning itself and how, we're trying to show that it's more valuable alive than it is dead. Like right now, the value in land being cutting down the trees for wood, well, showing the value in keeping it alive, but how does nature own itself and govern and steward itself? So I think like overall, just by this entire app, we're showing that. We're making it actionable. And I think that whole idea presents itself, thoroughly just with the basis of our app that we, this idea that we have here. This is all about land owning itself. It's the overall purpose that we've created here. So I don't know if we need to show it specifically anymore, besides like, having diagrams of like the carbon cycle and like what happens to the tree and showing something more specific through animation and specific parts of the land, like animation of a specific tree on the land of when it gets watered, what happens, to actually show what's going on with nature some way through animation.
So yeah, just to kind of explain what I'm seeing, it's like we're creating a platform where communities can pay for tasks to be completed in a completely decentralized, trustless way. Anyone can walk up, do the pruning of a tree, take a picture, you've got it done, post it, create a credential that they've done it, and then be able to receive either money from it or donations or points or rewards, whatever that turns into. So you have like this way for actions to be completed on the landscape. But this could be used for anything, right? Like you could do this app, you could do the most horrible, destructive, agriculture, you could do like indoor cow farming, the factory farming with this, it's like a decentralized workforce comes in and they're like, oh yeah, I milked the cows, here's the picture. It's like this engine could be used for anything. And we have a certain purpose that we want for it. We have certain communities we want to get aligned with. And I think the volunteers are like even more receptive to some sort of coordination solution, because the centralized businesses are able to manage their employees and pay them to do these different tasks already. But I'm just wondering, like, where does that come in where the nature has a voice to say which types of tasks does it need? Not what we need, not the business we're trying to do, not the community we're trying to create, but what does the land itself need and the trees itself. So I don't know if that clarifies anything.
No, it does. But that's what I was saying earlier about the community manager. Let's say the community manager knows that X thing needs to be done every 3 months. They could start creating tasks that are automated, like little mini smart contracts almost. Like this particular, whatever area needs to be done, and just set it for a recurring thing, and then people can accept that. Even though it's guided by the community manager, I think it could be one of those deals where then once that's set up, then it becomes a really easy thing to maintain. I don't know if that makes sense.
I guess I think that's great. And I guess one way to kind of clarify that is like, so how do you decentralize the community manager?
I think that we have a suggestion, like templated tasks that need to happen with all land, and the community manager can go in and choose those tasks for their own community. They can set them as reoccurring, but also have the option to input new tasks that are reoccurring. So I think that we should have like a suggestion based on like biomimicry and our own ethical framework that we're trying to set when it comes to ecology. But put a template in for repetitive tasks that we recognize need to be done to all lands. And that way any community manager could just choose those, or they could go in and edit and put in new tasks and set those as reoccurring, monthly, bi-weekly, once a week, every 3 weeks, like and have those options. So
but Joe, to your point, I don't think you can completely, the trees can't speak for themselves. It's like I speak for the trees, to borrow the old analogy from the Lorax, to a certain extent. I don't know. Has anybody watched the Lorax?
Yeah.
Speak for the trees.
Alex, Charlie, anything you guys haven't heard from you in a minute?
I agree with Chris. But also the voting, I think it will help. I don't know, make sure that the trees have the right voice, or at least the most popular voice, which I guess is the right voice. A combination of like someone in the community that is a leader, and the voting that we do on each of these pieces of land or communities. I think the combination of those two will help us find the right actions within these communities.
And then from there, we'll be able to basically automate the stewardship of these lands. but maybe it does take a community leader in the beginning to set up the community correctly with the right tasks. And it has to be someone who has a strong, understanding of what needs to be done specifically for that community. So it needs to be definitely like a leader identified that can set up their community.
I would also add that, the scientists, the ones that can like measure, the quality of soil and see if there's decay of the trees. I feel like their voices are also a little bit more important because the community may be just focusing on what they see, but not necessarily understanding what's actually happening.
I think that the science, like the biocompatible design standards, is like one version of this is what needs to happen on the land. Let's make sure these things happen. Scientists can take, a specific variable like, soil organic matter and create the tasks that ensure that that specific variable is moving in the right direction. I think we can come up with, voting wise, we can decide what is important to us as a community. And yeah, I mean, I don't know what kind of answer they're looking for from the hackathon, but yeah, those trees can't speak. So someone needs to decide on some level what's best for the tree. And I think some combination of everything we're talking about is really all that we can give them.
Joe,
And I think go ahead.
Just had a thought real quick that at some point, I wonder if the app needs like an experts page or a page would be fine, I guess, but an expert, a place where these managers can go if they need knowledge on what the right choice is, because they're not going to be experts in every single ecological or scientific field out there. And so it might be beneficial to have someone that they could reach out to and ask questions.
That's a great point.
I love that. I was just thinking that, Alex, like an experts forum, like somewhere where the community manager can go and post a question.
So we need a page where they can identify tasks that are generally, proposed by scientists, experts. What did you just say, Katie? I don't know what she said, but yeah, I love that. I think that's really cool. Like the landowners will have. I feel like there's like a grab and go style. Like, okay, here's our basic eco village package. Take this group of tasks that these experts agree are great tasks to have, and they can like go on the page and like start ask questions. I think that's Katie, ask questions. I can like ask questions and like answer and figure out exactly what the community needs, and start from like a centralized community leader kind of way of doing things, working with the scientists to like identify what those specific tasks are, like a game plan. And then maybe over time, like the voting and different proposals like come up to the community, to the people on the ground, like continuing to operate and monitor, what these different experts, it's like a feedback loop. It's like the experts have an idea of how to do it, and the community does it and posts about it and talks about it and says, actually, now we have too many birds and we don't want that many birds, or whatever it is. It's like some loop where we have a community of experts, we have the people on the ground, and they're like talking in different forums and stuff.
I think the deeper, honestly, you're like creating a masterpiece, and at some point you got to stop, because this can continue. You can continue to build it out. But I think if you stick to the core points of what we talked about, which was addressing the needs that this particular hackathon is looking for, I think we're going to be in the right place. I don't know if that makes sense, because I suffer from that when I try to get creative. I just continually add to things.
Yeah, and
Yeah, so we're
yeah.
making something very big right now.
Yeah,
But going back to what you said, Chris, I think what's really important to them specifically is that they are a brown field and there's thousands of these around the world. And they want to know, how are specifically for them, and our conclusion that we're drawing is to show how
gotcha.
brown fields, these places with this toxic soil, they're trying to live on them, they're trying to steward them. So driving in the conclusion for the Day Seville specifically, I think it would be great to make sure that
That's
we
a good
drive
point.
across, that we're there, we can help brown fields all over the world, not just eco villages, but specifically brown fields.
Gotcha. Okay.
But I think this
You know,
is
and I was
really,
just thinking about something. Sorry, Katie.
Yeah.
These companies, like these big companies, big polluters, are looking good for any good PR that they can get. So oftentimes, they offer grants and things like that. That's another thing I was just thinking about, because like the Exxons of the world do a lot of damage, but they also have grants and things like that to help clean up some of the damage they left. I think that might be important to look at too. Sorry, just
yeah,
something else that crossed my mind.
that's a great point.
Good PR.
So we're at an hour and a half. How much more do we want to accomplish today?
Yeah, so any final thoughts on this? I think the next thing that we should do is think about what we'd like to accomplish this next week before our next meeting. So I'm kind of thinking, so like this was still sort of an expansive exercise to try to imagine what would this future possibly look like. I think what we need to do is sort of edit and think like, how can we create one or two website previews or app previews that can kind of highlight everything that we're discussing and showcase exactly what we're talking about. Like this is like the big picture, but then can we get away with in a presentation that's really only like 4 minutes? Can we just have 2 views of the website, So I think we can edit a little bit down. And then I think, I mean, for me, the to-do list, what we need to have is the presentation and then the like technical demo. And then the technical half doesn't even necessarily need to be fully functional. It can just be visual, like, and then you would go to this page and see what it would look like. So like a visual preview of the actual app that we're proposing. So I think there's like a little bit of editing that needs to happen, and then just focusing on, okay, we need a graphic of this thing, and then we can have someone work on that graphic. You know what I mean? We need a presentation of this, few things. So anyways, that's the path that I see forward. I think we lost Katie.
She left. She's like, I'm out, or an hour and a half, I'm out of here.
So yeah, what do you guys kind of think of that game plan? We can just focus on the presentation and the visual side, and we still have a few weeks to talk to a developer about completing the specific smart contracts and other pieces that we need. Do you guys feel
Yeah,
like
I mean,
clear about what we're trying to do? You feel like you can see
yeah,
it?
yes, I feel like yesterday or last week we talked about well, first of all, introducing each other. So now we didn't know each other, and then we started sort of creating this rough outline. Now we're putting it in a visual form. Hey, Katie, in a visual form on the app. And it's just progressing in the right direction, I think. Or what the app could look like, sorry.
Second that.
Yeah, I think we're moving along great. If we could get Any tasks done before the next meeting? What kind of tasks do you feel like you guys could contribute? Or, what would you like to work on more?
So from a presentation perspective, what kinds of things did you want to include, like a diagram, or how do you want to have a setup of what kind of do you envision the presentation to look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. If you want, we can spend like 10 minutes making, that was something me and Katie actually talked about, having like the bones of our 5 slides figured out so we know what we need to do.
Okay.
I created I can share my screen again. I created a just a simple, I can't see because Zoom's in the way, but just a blank Google Slides. I think we can work through Google Slides and we can all access it and work through it. But yeah, I think that'd be really useful if you want to spend time while we're here together, kind of think about it, and then we would know, oh, we need this on this slide, and someone could work on that.
Yeah, I think that's useful to have like you said, the bones of it, and then we can start filling in the gaps. Just like with the stuff you've done on the Figma board, it's amazing how within 10 minutes we could all fill it up.
Mhm.
And then we could edit. And somebody like yourself or Katie should edit it and put it into one cohesive.
Yeah.
So we're going to want to introduce, well, okay, so let's think about that. So you're going to want to start the presentation by introducing the proof of concept. Well, introducing the team, introducing proof of concept. What else?
Our mission, and then who our target, user would be. I guess that would go, yeah.
Yeah, the problem state.
Yeah,
The user and their problem.
yeah. And then the second page, Joe, I lost connection for a minute. But could we do, like you said that you had your friend who could do an animation of it, or a drawing, so that we could see like someone, because they want to see that. They want to see what the app could look like. So on the second page, like, could we have an introduction of the app for the second, and like what the app is going to do? And then maybe like the third page would be a picture of it, like a drawing of it that your friend was going to put together, like someone looking at the app, then a zoomed in to the landing page type thing, and kind of like show some visuals of the app.
Yeah.
And then
I think, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I'm going to put, this may be what you're talking about. I'll just put it on this last slide, the technical demo. Like, so traditionally in these hackathons, we're going to record a video. I think we only have like 4 or 5 minutes total to present everything. And so within the video, one or multiple people from the team will come on and introduce us as a team and walk through 1 or 2 slides introducing, maybe 3 or 4 slides introducing the whole thing. And then you cut to a video walking through the app. And so depending on how much technical support we can get from people who know how to develop, all the different things, I think the technical demo piece could just be these visuals. It could just continue the slide presentation basically, but you just have like a high fidelity wireframe visual of the different apps, and it can like appear like you're clicking a button when really it's just the next PowerPoint slide. I think that can sort of accomplish on our side what we're going to be able to accomplish. So that might be what you're talking about, Katie, with the visual previews of the app.
Yes.
And that might be like what we have to do as a team with limited developers on it,
Okay.
So that's the general idea. And then I was going to say, I think Alex is, we're both landscape architects. Alex is a great, illustrator. I think we could have some sort of fancy diagram of like, I'm thinking like the houseboat, like, so like a picture of Dequeville and like a
Yeah, you said
visual
that was on their
storyboard.
presentation, Joe. Sorry to
What's
interrupt.
that?
I was just sort of, I didn't know I was unmuted, but that's exactly what was on the Dequeville video. It's like a landscaper architect's view of what it could look like,
Yeah.
you know, fancy stylized.
So like visualize the land, here's the houseboat, here's the plants, here's, you know, someone weeding things, and here's someone holding up the app, taking a picture, you know, like the different things that the app will actually mean on the ground in person, visualizing that in some sort of a diagram that shows the Dequeville village and one or multiple people using the app for those different tasks. So I think, Alex, you and I can maybe talk about that this week, but I have some ideas about what that could look like. I mean, there's super fancy stuff that all these architects are doing. We could make something pretty compelling, but we just need to show like the bare bones of like, here's what actually will happen in the real world, is that there's actually now there's, you know, instead of using these volunteers, I mean, they are volunteers, but it's like these volunteers are coordinated through a new app, blah, 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 all that sort of stuff. And then at the end, it's like, okay, here's what the app looks like. Here's what you can do on the app. Here's what you can click.
And then another explaining like tokenomics behind it. How does our token structure work? What are the rewards? But the possibilities for, you know, what is tokenization accomplishing, and what are the possibilities for the land and tokenizing stewardship?
Oh, I like that, like a slide, the end slide, like possibilities, future potential.
What do we have so far? Let's see. Is that three?
So,
is that 3 to 5 slides?
Yeah, I think 3 to 5 slides, and they also said like minimal text or something like that. I think they have 4 minutes total, if I'm not mistaken. And then I have one of these as technical demo. So I'm thinking if we have to go with a very visual technical demo, we might have more than 3 to 5 slides, but like the actual PowerPoint part will be 3 to 5 slides, and the technical demo, it may be still be slides that we're flipping through, if that makes sense. But right now we have, so we'll have just the title. I don't think that counts. And the introduction, team members, mission, proof of concept, what's the big idea, the target user problem statement, and then the app itself, like maybe some sort of overview diagram, or it could be like the rendering I was talking about, like some sort of introduction to the app. And then next I said visual preview of the app website. I'm gonna put this on the technical demo page because that's what I meant to do. And then delete this slide. And then tokenomics, or that's the smart contract diagram. I've seen some diagrams of this before. It's contract architecture. We can probably come up with something even without having a developer on our team. I might be able to work with someone on that. And then, yeah, then the technical demo. So that's 6 slides, and 1 is the title.
Awesome. Okay. And we can pick this up at the next meeting, and then we can continue to proof and edit and add to it, you know, and be ready to, you know, to upload this and present. But yeah, I think this is great.
Yeah. And I'm thinking we'll pre-record a video of the full presentation. So when it comes to the actual day of, we'll be right on time and like everything will be perfect, and we can just play it over Zoom or whatever we need to do.
Cool. Well, I do have to go, unfortunately, but can we plan when our next meeting is going to be?
Yes. Do you just want to keep the weekend? Does that work for everyone? Like Saturday, Sunday?
Yeah, absolutely. If it works for you guys.
let me see. On my calendar, I'm available on Saturday. You want to do 12 again? 12:30?
Let's do 12:30.
Okay.
12:30. It doesn't matter to me.
Okay, cool. And then you have the links to the Figma, the Google Drive, the Google presentation. So if anyone has time, we can like message on that individually, maybe one-on-one to get some of that stuff done.
Yeah, and
I
we can share ideas in Discord too. And, you know, start just like a channel for like presentation, just, you know, amongst us, where we could just be able to open questions and talk about it to each other, like a private channel.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, I think this is great, you guys. I really think we're onto something, and I'm thinking we could win. Like, I think the top prize is like 7,500 euros and stuff. So we'll see. That's like, I don't know. It's probably like $10,000 or something. That'd be pretty exciting.
we're gonna try. And you know, maybe, yeah, and I don't know who the other teams are, but maybe we also want to look at, you know, teaming up. That's not, you know, something we haven't talked about yet, but we should stay open to it, I think.
Sure. I mean, personally, for me, it's not about the prize money. For me, it's becoming part of a community, you know, doing this and learning how this all works and developing something that could be, whether it's with this or just PLP becoming its own thing down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, any final thoughts, questions, concerns, review of today? I think we did great today.
We did really good, guys. I'm excited. I love working on this. Every time we get together, it's such a build out of ideas. We just get so much farther every time. And it's amazing how much progress we're making, and I'm excited to see where it goes. Just like Chris said, whether we win or not, it still has been fun and interesting. And I think either way, we're going to create something really neat out of this.
Yeah.
Agreed.
All right. Well, everybody have a good day.
Yeah, thanks guys. This is so fun.
All right.
See you all next.
Everyone.
Talk to you in Discord.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.